Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to the latest episode of One Nation Under Whisky. I remain at the ACSA conference in Tucson, Arizona. Had a wonderful couple of days meeting people, talking with people, industry focused, a lot of excitement around the category. I continue to be excited to be here. And at this moment, I have Erin Lee with me, head distiller at Few Spirits in Evanston, Illinois. Hello.
Hello.
I had the distinct pleasure of attending your presentation this morning that was Demystifying Tea, Applications to Spirits in Cocktails.
Yes.
And I'm a tea guy, Joshua's a tea guy, some of our listeners are tea folk. You are a certified tea sommelier.
Yes, that's right. It sounds a lot fancier than it is, I guess, but I used to work in the fashion industry, and while trying to find a way to figure out what my next passion was, I dove deep into the world of tea. I went to China and ended up actually tasting a bunch of teas and realizing that there is so much more to tea than I thought. Like, I grew up drinking certain types of tea, but I never really explored all that tea had to offer. So trying these teas, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really fascinating. Like, how do all of these different flavors come from the same plant? My husband happened to be working with someone who was studying for their tea sommelier license, and then he was just like, hey, you should take these courses. And I was just like, what on earth am I gonna do with that? Like, seriously, like, I don't think of myself as an outgoing person, so the ideal of like necessarily working in hospitality side, I was just like, I don't know. But he was just like, this interests you, maybe you should just see where it takes you. And I started pulling that yarn of interest, and the next thing I knew, I discovered how much I love the tasting process. I love slowing down. I love just analyzing what it is I'm tasting. And it was just a good reset for me. So then I studied and got my tea sommelier certification, which means I went through 8 different modules. I did some oral presentation aspects as well as small tea ceremony. And I had to blind taste, I think it was 20 different random teas, and then identify the region and tea type, which was easier. But some of the black teas got really tricky because I was like, oh, is this a black tea from India? If it's from India, I had to identify what region of India it was from. So.
My gosh, that's serious. Where did you do this?
I actually did it online.
Oh, fantastic.
And they mail you tea samples, and then I also purchased a lot of other tea samples just so I could practice. And then I started getting really curious. I was like, oh, I've had like white tea from China. What does a white tea from India taste like? And then...
Well, not to jump too far ahead, but there was a moment in today's presentation where you talked about using Argentinian tea if you didn't want too much influence from the tea. Am I remembering that part correctly?
I talked about using Argentinian tea if you wanted to have a tea-heavy product where clarity was...
Clarity, that's right.
Was your biggest,
So I want to come back to clarity. The reason I bring it up now is you're talking about traditional tea countries here that are very recognizable. I didn't know Argentina had a tea industry.
Yeah.
Is it well established? Have I been sleeping on a giant here?
Well, Argentina isn't necessarily known for their tea quality, and if you were going to sip hot tea, you probably wouldn't want to drink Argentinian tea because it's not as flavorful. It's quite earthy. It has a kind of flat palate, but it's perfect for iced tea, and Argentina is the #1 provider of black tea for the US market for iced tea.
Ah, interesting. Oh, that was so good today. So as you led us through today, obviously there's a component of this where we'll head toward the spirits side. But today we had all cold brewed, white, green, 2 oolongs. I've made it as far as 4. I know we had the rose infused. Oh, and the pu'er.
Yes.
The pu'er we had there as well. And so how did you make the connection between tea and spirits? What was in your tea education that made you think, first of all, how did you get from fashion to tea to head distiller at Few? What was that journey?
My journey from fashion was I went into the industry because it actually gave me a sense of being a shy person. Like, it kind of gave me a way to express myself, but also it was a conversation starter. Like, I feel like if you wear something interesting, you can start talking to people. And
makes sense.
Like, if you're shy, it's like, okay, let's not talk about me, but let's talk about what I'm wearing. And then it gave me a lot of sense of confidence. And then I was just like, I want to do the same thing for other women. I want to make people feel seen and comfortable.
Awesome.
So then I went into the fashion industry, but the industry's changed a lot over the years. It's moved towards just faster cycles of fashion.
Okay.
And people treat clothing like tissue these days, and they just buy things and wear them once and then throw them away. And that side of it was just starting to get really ugly, and I didn't want to be a part of that anymore, like the excessive consumption. So
checks out.
I got into tea because I wanted, as I was saying, a reason to slow down. And the process of brewing tea itself, like if you're doing like a gongfu cha, you kind of take a little bit of tea in a really small teapot and do several infusions, like really short infusions, and see how the tea develops and changes over the course of your brews. And through the process of that, every time you count the seconds, you can take a really deep breath in and then a really deep breath out, and that's about 10 seconds.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of became a almost meditative process for me, and I was just like, oh, I feel really calm when I'm having tea. And I think it also helps that tea, especially green tea, has L-theanine in it, so that it gives you that calm, focused energy.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh, yeah, I drink a lot more white tea than I do green tea.
Well, I think it's in white tea as well.
Okay, hopefully I'll start to feel calm really soon.
Yeah.
So in that kind of meditative slowing down, you then got into distilling.
Yes.
What was that little bit of a journey like? Because I know that you were at the ACSA and you were a fellow, an intern.
I was an intern.
Okay, I want to get the
Step-up
language
internship
right.
Program.
So internship program.
Yeah, so after I got into tea, I was like, oh, it's an agricultural product, and depending how it's processed, it can taste entirely different, and also depending on who's making it. I thought, hey, whiskey is not so different from that.
Oh, wow.
And then I just started joining a lot of whiskey tastings, and then hearing people in the industry talk about whiskey, I was like, oh my gosh, all of these people, they're super passionate, they're so excited about this, and it seems like it's hard work, but they love what they do. I've always been a bit of a maker, so I like working with my hands. Like, I ended up in the fashion industry doing a lot of drawing on the computer, so it wasn't as much hands-on as I initially thought it would be. So it's a chance to get back into, I guess, experimentation with the making side of things. And then I started reading books about whiskey, listening to podcasts about whiskey, and then spending all my brain space on whiskey. And then I was like, can I make money working in the industry? I happened to see the Step-Up internship, and it's an internship created to help diversify the spirits industry.
Okay.
I found out about it actually through Instagram. There was a bottle of whiskey that a bunch of people had collaborated on called Good Deeds Spirits to raise funds for a Step-Up. So then, like, initially I was like, hey, why are 10 different distilleries working together to raise money for something? What is it? And then when I saw what the program was about, I was like, oh, I should apply.
Oh, wow.
And I had 3 days to get my application in. And I was just like, I don't know. I just threw my, name into the hat, and we'll see what happens. The next thing I know, they're calling me to tell me I've been selected.
Well done.
I found myself at a convention looking at people that I've seen in
Looks around
magazines
the room.
and feeling a little bit intimidated, but at the same time, feeling really welcomed into the industry. I ended up training at different distilleries around the country. I was at Westward Whisky in Portland, Oregon.
Fantastic.
8 Oaks, a farm distillery in Pennsylvania. A bunch of Diageo properties in Kentucky and Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
As well as R&DC, the distributor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Whoa.
So yeah, I spent an entire year training, and right before I graduated, Paul Hletko at Few reached out to me and was like, do you want to join the team? We're hiring a distiller. So I thought, hey, the people at Few that I've met all seem like really interesting, good humans, and working with good humans after working in the fashion industry was of the utmost importance.
We say that a lot. Good humans are important in this industry, and there's a lot of them. So
yeah.
I'm glad that was your experience. As you were moving around, you mentioned husband previously. Were you both based somewhere and you were jumping out to go to other cities? Was he moving around with you? What was that looking like? Because I know there's kind of a realistic side to this as well, when you're living the dream.
Yeah,
as an intern.
It happened to be the COVID year, so he was working from home anyways. So we put all our stuff into a storage unit in Brooklyn, and he came on the road with me.
That's
At
awesome.
times it was, we were in like a little room in Portland, Oregon, like a studio, and he'd have client calls on the East Coast, and we were in the West Coast, and he'd be sitting in the dark at 5 in the morning, and I was just like, I'm so sorry, while I had my head under a pillow.
And that's what I like about the realities of this, right?
Yeah.
The internship is fantastic. The opportunities to work with Diageo properties is fantastic. The reality of being a married person and realizing your dream is sometimes tricky. And one of the questions we get a lot from people who listen to the podcast is, how do I do it? How do I do what you did? And there are no shortcuts. It all came with sacrifice.
It definitely wasn't easy. I mean, right. I was lucky that my husband was so supportive. He was just like, you need to do this, you need to live your dream, and I'm just gonna be there with you. And COVID gave us the opportunity to make it possible that we could travel together.
See, COVID wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
It was 99% bad, but
exactly.
There was a tiny silver lining. So then you're off to Chicago now, you're off to Few Spirits. From internship, you walked in the door as head distiller?
I did not. I joined the team as a distiller.
Oh, there you
and
go.
I
Still,
learned a lot from the team, just in terms of like daily production life, because I'd seen different ways of doing and achieving creating spirits, but ultimately every distillery, because of their setup and equipment, have to work a specific way. Few is in a really old garage space that's been converted into a distillery. So it's probably one of the smallest distilleries that I've been to. So learning to drive a forklift in there was very interesting too.
You were saying yesterday some grain bags maybe?
Oh yeah, at the beginning of learning to drive a forklift, I definitely clipped a few grain bags and ended up having to patch them with masking tape. And every time I clipped a grain bag, I was like, I'm a terrible driver. And yet here I am offloading grain all the time from our delivery trucks off a main public road.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we don't have a loading dock, so that's the fun. I just honk my horn a lot as I'm backing out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And there's an alleyway that connects
the
Few door
we're at the
to
end of an alley hidden behind a thrift shop in Evanston.
And you're zooming up there on your forklift.
Yeah, not zooming, going very, very slowly and honking my horn to make sure no pedestrians are in the way.
If anyone from health and safety is listening, I appreciate the clarification. So I hope you don't think I derailed us. I just think your story is so interesting and shows the way somebody can make a transition. Obviously, mine was from teaching philosophy to becoming an independent bottler. Joshua's was selling industrial components to being an independent bottler. From fashion to tea sommelier to head distiller at Few is a fantastic story with that internship program along the way. So I really wanted to give that some of its due and really a chance to say that out loud. And I hope you're proud of yourself.
I am. And I can say that now because I feel like, I think initially I felt a lot of that creeping evil imposter syndrome, but I've realized that, hey, who's distilling that liquid? It's me. Like that whiskey didn't get to the barrel by itself. Like
Yeah. And that's partly what I liked about seeing you innovating with tea. I didn't write down a specific fact here, but one thing that struck out this morning that I knew I wanted to follow up with you on is you opened your presentation by saying tea, please correct me if I get any of your words wrong here, tea-infused alcohols are only going to increase over the next 7 years.
I believe so, yes.
And so could you put some leaves on those branches? I'd love to hear your expertise on that and what you've seen and what you've intuited there.
Tea is the most consumed beverage in the world, aside from water. So it's already something that's really familiar to people. A lot of people have never experienced a really good cup of tea, however, but that's another thing. But I feel like there's kind of a health halo around tea. So people think of tea as something really healthy. It only has 2 calories per cup of tea, and you get a lot of flavor and wonderful mouthfeel and texture. And it really actually extends the finish of a lot of spirits products. So I feel like they just kind of go together. And as people are looking to make healthier choices, whether it be something with antioxidants like tea has plenty of, and it also black teas are heart healthy, while green teas have potential cancer inhibiting effects.
Indeed.
So I think people are just looking for healthier choices. So when they look at something that has tea, they're like, hey, maybe that's a healthier choice than just alcohol. Or if they're looking to consume a lower proof product, using tea as something more flavorful than water would be really great.
Okay, I love what you'd said today about using a tea ice cube in a cocktail. And as that ice cube defrosts, you're getting, or liquefies, you're getting more of that tea flavor in your cocktail. Yes. I thought that was really interesting. Have you experimented with that at home?
I have. So I think part of my tea sommelier certification was actually to create a tea cocktail. And then I was like, oh, you can use tea anywhere, you can use water. So I was like, why hasn't anyone decided to make ice cubes out of tea?
Did you find some teas were better than others in either ice cube form or in cocktail use?
I feel like for the tea cocktail that I developed, I was using a green tea, but I think I just liked that the ice cube itself was visibly tea infused. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. we dip in and out of cocktails in One Nation Under Whisky, and I'm not very good at remembering cocktails.
Yeah.
And Joshua likes to experiment, and I try to experiment sometimes. But it's nice when we meet somebody who knows cocktails and really knows those flavors. And are there particular flavors that teas work with, or are there so many options in tea you can find a flavor that each of them works with?
I think there are just so many flavors in tea that you can find something. Like I was talking in my presentation a little bit about aroma compounds, and tea has a lot of linalool, which is found in a lot of gin botanicals.
Okay.
I believe juniper has linalool as well as lavender. And so if you start thinking about those kind of compounds, you can find something. I think like tea also has like damascone, like certain types of tea, which is kind of that rose flavor. So that might be a good pairing as my black tea infused with, my bourbon infused with rose-scented black tea. Sorry, I'm like going into a...
No, that's foreshadowing.
circle.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I like that. Dear listener, we shall return. So there's a few bits here that I'm trying to tease out. So this morning, my question, and in your presentation, why tea and alcohol? We're hearing about the health benefits. We're hearing about the flavor components there. I love what you're saying about this extended finish. And until this morning, I'd A, never heard that, and B, had no reason to ever give that thought. And now that we sit here, I'm curious, have you done internal experiments on that? Have you seen how that has manifested itself with your level of interest?
I think for us, like, it wasn't actually a deliberate decision, but when you try, because for example, we make a rye whiskey and we make one that's also infused with oolong tea. And when you have them beside each other, like the one infused with oolong tea will definitely linger a lot longer.
Okay.
And I think the same thing with the bourbon whiskey that we were talking about.
Yeah, it's a wild one. I'm certainly thinking more about that and paying more attention to that as I leave here and go forth. Oh gosh, this always happens. I've got too many questions. We've heard this over a couple of days at this conference. The T word, terroir, has been rolled around by a number of people, and I'm curious for you. You said so many valuable things that you've got me thinking about so many other things. But processing and terroir affect the taste of tea. Obviously, there's the soil, and we know that from grapes and things like that, but even down to the processing of it, the difference between hand and machine pluck is a term I learned from you.
Oh yeah, I feel like in places where labor is really expensive, they do tend to use mechanical harvesting, and that actually is like less discriminative about picking only the best and most tender young leaves. And the mechanical action of cutting using a machine actually damages the tea more, so it might cause premature oxidation that you might not be looking for in the profile of the tea that you're looking to create. With hand plucking, I feel like since it's done by hands, they can visually inspect the leaves and then choose only the best leaves that are ready.
Sure.
When I visited a tea farm in Taiwan, he actually showed me how he skimmed his hand along the tea bush, and then only the ones that kind of softly moved were the ones that he chose to harvest.
Oh, wow. That's attention to detail.
Yeah.
Wow. And then terroir, is there clearly climates?
Different climates,
soil.
Different elevations. High mountain tea will have more aroma compounds, and because it's in more rocky soils, it'll tend to have more minerality.
Okay. And then, again, today you said minerality is a little bit is good in tea, but too much will inhibit extraction?
Oh, that comes to the water. So minerality in tea can be kind of just a flavor sensation. It's like, oh, this reminds me of wet rocks, and that's like minerality in tea. But when it comes to using water for brewing your tea, you should really pay attention. You want to kind of stick between 20 and 120 ppm for mineral content. I use a little TDS meter and remineralize my own water at home because I'm a nerd and that's what I do. But I feel like with getting the ideal water, you get better extraction of flavors.
I think you're spot on, right?
Yeah.
You were even saying your tea kettle moves down to the individual degree?
It does. I feel like I was, while I was doing my tea sommelier program, I had a kettle that had preset adjustments like 176 degrees, 190 degrees. But I was like, oh wait, they recommend doing 180 degrees. How am I gonna like get there? And like, there is like a way to like boil water. Like they do this in China where they call, by the size of the bubbles in the pot of water you're boiling, they determine what temperature it is. I think it's like shrimp eyes, fish eyes, crab eyes, like, and it's the size of the bubble in the pot.
Awesome.
But I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna make it easy for myself. I'm gonna get this kettle. I think they probably created it for coffee drinkers, but I love my kettle, and it makes me have perfect tea.
I definitely can hear in a lot of what you're describing as a tea nerd echoed in a lot of our coffee nerds. And Jess is such a coffee nerd, and not even as much as other people in her circles. But I don't think those people are thinking, I hate to see those people using scare quotes in the air. Coffee nerds take it seriously. We're whiskey nerds, we take it seriously. You're a tea nerd, you take it seriously. Like, there's nothing wrong with taking it seriously. And if you get a good cup of tea out of it, or coffee, or a good glass of whiskey, then surely it's been worth it.
For sure, all the details matter. And they come through in the taste.
So on that very point, on the details, you're clearly doing more with tea at Few than I've known about. And oftentimes, well, all the time I'm not on social media. I'm very aware that I'm missing a lot of things in the grand scheme of things. But if it's possible that some of our listeners are as in the dark as I am, could you talk to us about some of your other projects, some of your experimentation going on at Few, and then please do lead up to the bourbon we tasted today?
Oh, like right now, I guess some of our experiments are grain experiments. So we're working with certain smaller grains that haven't been used in America in a long time.
Okay.
And they're complicated, but I feel like last week was actually my first round of mashing. So I don't even know what the distillate tastes like yet. My distiller was texting me, telling me, hey, it's coming out really interesting. So can't wait to get back and see what that's all about. And but that's kind of a longer term project, because I feel like all of our whiskeys at Few usually 4 years plus. So
checks out.
We're going to have to wait a while on that. When it comes to tea experiments, I got to create a really unique product last year in collaboration with the Smashing Pumpkins. Billy Corgan and his wife Chloe, they have a tea shop in Highland Park, so about 30 minutes north of the Few Distillery.
Okay.
They have a little tea shop, and they're huge tea nerds themselves. So they actually picked out a few teas from their tea shop, sent them over, and since I'm a tea sommelier, I got the opportunity to work on this project. And I played with our bourbon whiskey and our rye, and like as soon as I smelled the tea we ended up picking, they call it Midnight Rose, and it's a black tea that's been scented with rose petals from the Anhui province of China. I just was like, this is really magical. This is going to be great. I think we should do it with our rye whiskey. It turned out I was wrong. So from my experiments, like bourbon and that ended up being just a magical combination. When I tried it with our rye, it was just like the floral notes that I love in our rye, and the floral notes kind of took over, and I was like, no, this is leading me to my grandma's bathroom, and I don't want to be there.
Well, that Midnight Rose with the rose petal infused tea was unmistakable today. Putting my nose in there, that was rose from the very beginning. Even to the point, and everyone's palate is different, I would have struggled to get a cup of that tea over my throat. It was just too much. Is that a flavor for you? Could you drink a full cup of that? Could you have a pot of that? Do you drink pots of that?
I feel like for my nighttime no caffeine tea, I've actually even just steeped full roses. So I tend to veer fruity and floral in my personal taste preferences, but I can definitely understand that the amount of rose in that particular tea is intense. So it's not for the faint of heart. But I think when it comes together with our bourbon, like the vanilla and like the spiciness kind of, and that classic, the caramel notes you get from bourbon kind of just temper it out, and the rose is there, but I don't think it takes over.
No, and when you made that reveal today because you kept us in the dark a little bit. That was a masterful move. I appreciated it. You had us transition from the rose tea just simply to the few bourbon, and then you revealed that tea had been infused in that bourbon. And at the time of the reveal, I'd only been nosing, and I was asking myself the question, like, are you getting tea on the nose? And it was a very broad, open-ended question I was asking myself, and I was getting the vanilla and the caramel and the kind of the warm brown sugar notes in there. And then when you made the reveal, I asked you for the clarification, and then I said, wow, just like involuntary response, wow. And a few people looked at me, as they're prone to do, and I hadn't got any of the tea on the nose. Then when I tasted it, even then, it was a complementary florality. And then it appeared in the finish. And it made for a very interesting finish on a bourbon that was quite familiar on the nose, had the beginnings of evolution on the palate, and then was fully evolved in the finish. And I'm curious for you, as you went through the infusion process, how did you infuse? How did you get that in there? And then as you were going along that process, were there moments at which you wanted more and other moments where you wanted less? What did the process of playing look like?
So we were doing an ambient brew steep. So that means brewing tea at a cool room temperature, about 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, for our proofing water. And we were initially thinking maybe we'll just proof it down using the tea itself. But then the influence of the tea wasn't impactful enough. So then we decided that we were going to incorporate an alcohol steep as well.
Yes,
so
yes.
I feel like alcohol is a powerful solvent. So it pulled a lot more of it just intensified everything and gave it a good balance.
Okay. It's interesting when you say the proofing water didn't deliver enough, because having tasted, that was a cold brew presentation this morning. Having tasted that cold brew, it was so pronounced. As a proofing water, what kind of percentage volume would you have had? Or even just, if I got a bottle of that and you'd used it as proofing water, would it have been 55%, 50% that tea and 50% that bourbon?
Usually we come out of the barrel around 123 to 125 proof.
Okay.
And then we proofed it down to 90.
Okay. So it was bringing it down to 45. Okay. So
wait, 93 actually. Sorry,
okay.
I misspoke.
No worries at all. For the World's Fair of 1893.
Yes.
Thank you. Jason sometimes remembers a thing. And so the fact that cold brew that I experienced this morning didn't resonate enough in the bottle is astounding to me, to then know that an alcohol steep really intensified it. I can't imagine it being more intense than the cold brew I had this morning. And yet in drinking the bourbon, it was just a note. It was a note within the rest of the experience. When you were doing the alcohol steep on it, was that in a tote? Was that in a vessel? That wasn't in cask?
No, it was just in tote so we could monitor it.
Okay, and it was the tea itself then went into the liquid alcohol in the vessel?
Yes, we had like a smaller tote that we pulled, and then we kind of blended some of that concentrate back into the larger.
Gotcha. No, it's a hell of an experiment. And if this is for public, announcement, you said it this morning, that was 5,000 6-pack cases?
Yes.
So 30,000 bottles of that?
I guess so. I never really thought about it.
See, I'm always a bottles guy because we do single casks. Bottles are always what we're thinking in, because cases you're only going to be, 30, 35, 40, 45. And so when you say 5,000 six-packs, my eyes just widen. I'm like, that's a lot of bottles. But for an experiment that seems to have gone so very well, and those
thank you.
Those sold, gone.
Yeah, I feel like it's still in market in some places. I think
U.S. only?
U.S. only, but we did actually just bottle some for Europe.
Oh, nice one. So. Oh, very nice. And all this time, we haven't actually named it. So I'm terrible at sales. And so I'm glad that you haven't led with the name of your whiskey. So what was the release called?
A Few Spirits, the Smashing Pumpkins. It's straight bourbon with Madame Zuzu's Midnight Rose Tea.
That's awesome. And how much was a bottle?
I think about $40 to $45.
Oh my gosh. What an easy thing to pick up. What a wonderful experiment to get for a very accessible price.
Indeed.
Well done, you.
Thank you.
I know I said it earlier about being proud of yourself, but that really was well done. To bring such tea expertise with whiskey I commend you.
Thank you.
You're taking compliments really well. You look so awkward right now.
Oh, yeah, I feel like I need to get better at taking them in and being, I guess, I don't know, loud about promoting myself better.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. No, honestly, you just did a great job. I'm not blowing smoke. I don't need to blow smoke. I would like to source a bottle of that, though. That was really well done. You mentioned earlier in our conversation rye with oolong. Is that just an internal experiment, or is this another?
That's just a standard release that's been part of our core range for quite some time.
Quite some time. See, Jason got the 1893 World's Fair reference, but he's not getting the rye with oolong as a standard expression.
It's not in every market, to be fair.
Thank you. I'm in Virginia. Please forgive me.
Exactly.
We have nothing.
When I was in New York, I was like, I can't find this bottle that I've read about in a magazine. So.
And so rye with oolong then preceded the bourbon with the rose, and then, if it's been a while, preceded you?
Yes, and that was kind of what attracted me to Few. I realized that they didn't necessarily do things traditionally. Before myself and Sydney Jones, no one at the distillery had any, I guess, technical world experience. So everyone's been learning on the job. There's a lot of people who were artists or actors, so a lot of creatives and a lot of ideas. And so it's just interesting to see how a bunch of people who don't necessarily feel they have to abide by traditions, because they're like, why not?
So as you look at your own tea journey, you look at the success with the Smashing Pumpkins collaboration, and not to reveal anything that you might be working on in quiet labs, but are there ideas brewing within you? Thank you, professional level. Are there ideas brewing within you for things you'd like to make? Are there flavors you have learned through this process that are inspiring you for further ideas?
I feel like I'm always inspired by tea, but I feel like because tea has a lot of tannins, you have to balance the tannins in your tea with the tannins that are in your product. So I had a thought in mind for something, but I think based on tasting the spirit where it's currently at, I am going to put a plug in that, and I've been quietly thinking about a potential tea blend idea. So
okay.
We'll see.
And then I suppose this is a question I sometimes ask of blenders of whiskey, but I'll ask it of a potential blender of tea. And I guarantee you have tea blends in your own home. Given that you talked about this wide array of flavors in tea, when you start to think about how might you go about blending it, are there key flavor notes that you think about delivering? Maybe from our friends in the world of perfume, do you think of base notes and top notes? How do you make the world of tea manageable to create a tea blend?
I think I feel like you just have to know your ingredients. If you don't know your ingredients, you can't really put them together. And then think about all of the things. Like, if you don't know what the individual components are going to do, you can't really put them together. So think about what complements each other, and even just using your nose, for a quick sniff. If things don't smell right together, they're probably not going to taste right together.
Imagine if it went the other way. There was a thing you were saying about pu'er tea today, where pu'er, broadly speaking, fermented tea. When you started to talk about rapidly fermented pu'ers, it made me think a little bit about some of the rapidly aged whiskey that we sometimes see in our industry. Given that pu'er can have sometimes a mushroomy kind of flavor, sometimes a dankness to it, what ways do you see using that in spirits? That's a face. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's the answer.
I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm a romantic at heart, but I don't want to use any of those rapid aging processes if possible, because you don't get the beautiful flavor transformations and complexity from oxidation. I feel like anytime you rush things, maybe you can get close, but you can't get as deep.
Sure. So I didn't mean to bring that one there, just pu'er in general. Like obviously it's a more expensive tea. Obviously it's a stronger flavored tea. But I wondered about that kind of mushroomy quality of it. Do you see a way to use that? Do you see a usefulness of that?
I feel like certain whiskeys, you get kind of like that forest floor kind of experience. So if you paired one like that and something with more strength, like a heavily peated Islay whiskey, I think it could be friends with pu'er.
You just have to be careful, obviously, with the expense of it and how you went about using it. But again, a place where you see a flavor. It is the eternal romantic, the optimist in you. I've written the note, tea pairing considerations.
Oh, okay. I think for some of the considerations I had in mind, it was just pairing weight of flavor. You want to have...
Oh, nice.
And like we were talking about, you wouldn't want to put something really delicate with something that would overpower it. So as you said, you're a white tea drinker.
Yes.
And you wouldn't want to put that white tea with something like we just talked about, heavily peated Scotch. That would not, it would just get lost.
Indeed.
And it'd be a shame to lose all of those beautiful, delicate floral flavors you find in white tea.
Yep, no, that makes perfect sense. It does make me think, though, about an unpeated Islay with a white tea and what that might look like. I really was, and I think this is worth passing along to our listeners today, this idea of just breaking down a few vials or a few beakers or a few cups of alcohol of choice, and dropping tea leaves straight into it. See where it goes, see what it adds.
Yeah.
It's such a wonderful thought that has never crossed my mind. I've only started getting into making my own syrups for cocktails, and you had tea going into a simple syrup for a cocktail.
Simple syrup is the easiest way. You're already gonna make hot tea, so what better to use in place of boiling water than hot tea with your sugar, and there you have tea simple syrup, and it's ready to go.
That's so good. I'm going to think more about this. I've got lots of hours on planes coming up, and so I'm going to spend some time thinking about flavors and how I would like them to manifest. Okay, we have to dash off. Oh gosh, we're actually a little bit late to go to the the American Single Malt Whisky Commission gathering, so hopefully we're not missing Steve Hawley's opening remarks. I'll drop him a text to hold the important words until we get there. But before we dash, as you look over the next few years, what's on the docket for Erin Lee? You've led such an interesting, you've walked an interesting path to this point. What's the next thing? And I'm not talking about leaving your job or changing careers, but what gets you excited looking at the next 3 years for Erin Lee?
I think, I'm trying to get braver at public speaking.
You did a great job today.
I'm also looking to increase my technical knowledge. I completed my general certificate of distillation from IBD, and now I'm thinking of looking
What's IBD?
I think they just changed their name to CIBD, but it's the International Brewers and Distilling.
Perfect. Just wanted to there for the listeners.
Yeah. Is it the Institute of Brewers and Distillers? Yeah. Sorry, my brain is not even remembering this. But
we get so deep into our use of acronyms and abbreviations that we forget what they mean in the first place.
Yeah. So
it was an unfair question.
I'm hoping to get more technical knowledge, and I initially was like, hey, why do I have to learn Scotch whiskey regulations or how they do things over there? But then I got asked the very next week a question of, hey, how does your whiskey differ from what they do in Scotland? And I was like, oh, I have the answers because of this course. So I'm hoping to get deeper into it and just gain more technical knowledge.
Oh, well, it's been brilliant getting to know you over the last couple of days. We've broken bread together as well. We've had dinners and lunches together. It's been a real treat. And please, yes, walk into the room, be confident, you know your shit. And so own that, Erin, and take that forward with you. Thanks so much for spending time with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. Well, there you go, dear listener. A wonderful time with Erin Lee from Few Spirits. What a life, what a journey, what a person, what an innovator, and spending time with her. And I know I just said it to her, but what a treat it was spending time with her. And she's only going to go from strength to strength. Please watch that name. And please start to infuse tea into things. There's a whole world of tea out there. So let's continue to have fun, which we in the nation are known for. So thanks very much for joining me with my interviews across the ACSA. If you want to write in, drop us a note, question, comment, praise, recommendations. The address remains unchanged. info@singlecasknation.com. I will have been in Scotland by the next time you hear from me, with Joshua, with Jess, with Steve Hawley, with the gang at ASC, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a jolly good time. So, until the next episode, thank you very much. To all of you, a hearty cheers. Cheers.